gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and low light Jade with something new by JOICO. Anybody here familiar with the new LumiShine DD creams? Yes. So excited, and let's give the LumiShine DD creams a round of applause. Come on, guys. This was a tool we needed, and we finally have it. Covers gray, creates dimension, lives in the color, solid but reflective, and I'm gonna show you how to create a beautiful dimensional blonde with our new DD creams. And before I pass it along to Mark, I'd like to just share with you my formula. We're gonna do equal parts in the LumiShine DD cream, 9NG, natural gold, mixed with 8 NWB, natural warm beige. Equal parts, so that's a total of 2 ounces of pigment to 2 ounces of 5 volume developer. All right, thanks, Mark.
All right, guys. This is Tiffany, and I want to show, I really wanted to make her a redhead, I really did. But, but since I couldn't, I said, and usually when that happens for me in the salon, I usually will tend to go with really, really strong, beautiful golds. And I tend to think that golds are kind of like the new red. So I'm actually going to create a deep, rich base on her. This is my new technique for creating single process coloring. And it's where I actually use different formulas in different panels where I work with basically the shape of the head. And so I'm going to start with that. As I'm going through, I'm going to create a shadow root. And then I'm going to create a color contour around her face and a shadow line in the back. And then when I get up into here, we're gonna go in it. But we're gonna be using 3 different types of hair color for her single process, okay? For her regrowth, we're going to be using the new DD creams, deposit-only creams, which I love. We're gonna create depth and richness here. Then for her ends, where I'm going to tint this down and make this a bit richer, I'm going to use the liquid, the acidic liquid demi from JOICO LumiShine, which is going to provide the shine and the richness. And then in certain areas throughout the head, I'm actually going to go in and apply some permanent hair color for a little bit of lift and a little bit of brightness. What this does is create a very tourmalated, beautiful, jewel-like type of base color that I think is perfect. It's the kind of stuff that I'm doing right now in New York, and my clients are really digging it right now. So I'm going to get started on that.
Oh, it's me.
It's you.
Hey.
This guy.
This guy. All right, so what I'm going to do is I developed a technique a few years ago, okay, and it was called, we called it the crisscross color melt. And basically what it is it's a technique that melts both vertically and horizontally. So it's melting down the head, but it's also melting around as well. So the color transitions just as smoothly working this way as it does working this way. Okay, so up until that, we only had the one way of color melting. Everyone melts down, and that's pretty much all there is. Well, last year I really decided that I wanted to evolve that, and so I decided to come out with a new technique. I call it an infinity melt, and what it is basically, it's a similar concept, but now we're also melting the color on the root. So the root color is melting and transitioning at the same time as the color through the mids and ends. The only way that that works is you have to know your color wheel. Does anybody play with the color wheel much? Please, God, tell me yes. We're in a color room. Okay, good. It's the foundation of everything that we do, right? So I started looking into, when I was trying to figure out how to do that, I started looking into different paint swatching techniques and looking at interior designer, and there's this type of color transition called an analogous color transition. Basically what it is you're moving just one step over in the color wheel every time. So that's what the color melt is doing. The only way that it works without creating ugly, weird, canceling out colors, because we know if we go too far over from one to the next, you get some kind of weird poop color in between, right? So we don't want poop in the hair. We're gonna make sure that it transitions nicely. So we start with one. The first one, in this case, I like to keep it nice and bright around the face. So I'm gonna try to show what my colors are here. So I start with our bases just straight up yellow, and then we're gonna transition into more of an orangey color, and then we're gonna finish with the red. So these are all cleared out because her base is nice and light, so I don't wanna take it too deep. So those are gonna be our root formulas. Mids and ends, it's gonna be a similar thing, except for now we're gonna go, that pink is gonna match up with that first color. So wherever that next step is, that fourth color after those first three, that one is gonna melt into that first color. So if you can take the color wheel going like that and you bring it back, then all these colors transition beautifully and you won't have any issues as far as you're transitioning from one color to the next. And this one's just a good example of this white base here. This is exactly how I start all of my formulas. I start with a clear, you add in your color from there. If you start in with your color and then try to add clear, you waste a lot of clear, right? So you don't probably have that many tubes of clear in your studio to go through. So I start with clear, add in the color that I need to until I get the right shade, and then I go from there.
All right. Okay, so you guys, I really started focusing on how many times have we had that situation where a client comes in, she's booked for a partial highlight, and she comes in and goes, but I want to be way brighter today, and she wants a full highlight, and you have to really make her bright. I started trying to figure out ways and placement to really make a woman feel like she's much brighter, and those places are very important. So what I started doing was contouring and going off of the Instagram tutorials of why they were putting highlighter where they were, why they were putting bronzer where they were. So with our new DD creams, I'm going to be doing a color contour with the Blonde Life Lightener. You guys will see that I go really heavy with dimension and contouring around the nape. This swings around. It lays on the clavicle bone and onto the skin, you know, adding pop and reflecting onto the face and adding glow. I go behind really heavy. You guys are going to see here, and I'll show you on my presentation model, the actual outcome of it. I'm going to go heavy around the ear, swings around for the jawbone. Going to come in front of the ear. This is going to swing around for the cheekbone, and then you work your way up and get that very bold, melted out piece of that heavy blonde going up the face, opening up the brow bone and the eye color. So I'm going to begin, and you guys are going to see I take a slice. I do my long foil that we just came out with. This is the JOICO Artistry foil. And I'm going to go in, and you're going to do your standard balayage V. And then in the middle here, that open space, I'm going to melt in the DD creams for a low light, and that's going to be my contour, why this is going to be all highlighted around it.
All right, you guys, I'm working up the back panel of Jade's hair. When I looked at Jade's hair, she came in, this is what she has. This is our clients that we have every day in the salon. And basically what happened with Jade was she had a very lazy hairdresser, no offense, Jade, do her hair before because all of this interior is left alone. Her natural is a natural level 6. It's beautiful on its own, but all of her bottom hairline was highlighted probably 90%. So we needed to create some dimension in there. Yeah, I get it. A lot of ladies always, oh, you got to put highlights underneath here. No, you don't. No, you don't. So we are erasing what was previously done, like I said, with the new LumiShine DD creams. And I'm folding these long foils up as slightly different. And let me explain to you why I'm folding mine up this way. When you look at Jade, like I said, her natural's pretty. And when it's all down, it's not that bad, but what can we do to make it look a little bit better? We're gonna go in with the JOICO Free Play at the booth later on when Mark and I are on there, and I'm gonna use JOICO Free Play with 20 vol on these ends just to give it a bit more of that sun-kissed look. So I'm creating interior depth with our new LumiShine DD creams and light and bright on the mid, links, and ends. Okay? Right over to you, Mark.
Oh, thanks. Okay, as you can see, I'm finishing up my shadow root right now, and I want to, okay, just finish. I am going to go. I'm still working with my demi cream. Get it out, Mark. Demi cream that I'm creating my shadow root for. So I want you to think of the demi cream. This is my richness. This is my depth of color. Okay? This is a really, really great way to create really deep, rich, wonderful tones for the color shy client. I'm not really going in and doing a major alteration of her. I'm not using permanent color. I'm just turning it, baby. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I am going to take a zigzag pattern in her nape, thank you, like so, off the back, like so, like a gem, like a jewel. That's what I am working off of. I'm working off of lots of triangular sections, okay? And I'm going to take the rest of my demi cream and pull it through. We're gonna create a really deep, rich, strong accent for underneath that the rest of this color is gonna sit on top of. Okay, so I'm gonna start, and I'm just gonna go right to the ends with my, that same bowl that I just had. Not done yet. Here, hold that, okay? And I'm just gonna, once it, right down, right down. You know, JOICO has really, really like amped up and turned up the fact that the amino acids and the conditioning in the LumiShine really makes this type of color really possible, you know, for colorists. It's become such a wonderful tool for me, someone who's been in the business for quite some time and really, really loves keeping up with everything. This is the latest technology, and it's really freed me up as an artist to really get creative and to really have a lot of fun. Okay, so I'm just going to continue that all the way through, making sure it's completely immersed, and then I'm going to come back to the face frame with the cream, and I'm going to do some accent color contouring around that, and I'll pass it on.
What? All right, so I'm starting with, this is basically, this is kind of like your traditional color melt, right? We're going on with that root color first, and then we're applying the other color to our mids and ends. I'm going to try to spin her a little bit so that everyone can you just rotate that way? I didn't want to touch something, right? Like, hey, move over that way. So you can see here the way that I'm working. It's just really your very traditional color melt. I started actually with the pink, and then I'm going into the yellow, right? It's still going those 3 steps over. Right? I don't want to go too light. I start with that lighter color, and I'm going to work towards something deeper in the back because I like it nice and bright around the face. To transition the colors, it's actually, this is a perfect example of how to transition from dark to light when using intensities like this. Yellow in particular will pick up any color that it comes into contact with, right? We know that. If you touch yellow with the red, it's instantly going to turn orange, right away. So you have to be really careful when you're melting it. What I like to do is I like to start on the ends when I'm doing that. So I'm just going to step over here.
Hold on to that.
I'm out of Blonde Life.
So I'll apply the base formula, and if you could see the way that I took this first section, it's about 2 inches back, and then it just takes a diagonal straight down to the top of the ear. My next section from here is actually going to be my widest one, and it's going to take, actually not fully the widest, the one after that will be. But this one right here is going to be about an equal size, still using the ear as my pivot. And then the other one's going to come almost from that apex, same thing off of the pivot of the ear. What I'm doing is it's creating like a fan shape because I'm working with the curve of the head. So I'm allowing the curve to let the colors melt more fluidly. And then when I get to the back end, what I'll do is still use that pivot. So I've shifted the pivot from the ear, now I'm going to use the apex, and now I'm going to swing back that way too. So what that does is, again, we're just kind of working with the curve of the head to adjust it. And the colors in between, the way that we create that transition, if you're able to see it as I'm working through it, hopefully you can, it's basically just combining the colors that we're working with. So with these 6 colors, we're going to really create more like 12, because I'm going to lay this base color down first, and then the next base color is going to go right on top. And that's going to create a perfect transition, because it's like if I just melted those 2 colors together. Does that make sense? There's a few nods, I'll take it. That's good. All right. And Zoe's just, she's
Mixing
highlighting
away.
still. She's mixing. Look at that.
So I'm using my Blonde Life Lightener, you guys, too, and this has really been a total change in the way I approach any blonde. It gives you 9 levels of lift. Also, too, with doing pre-lighten tones all day, it has been so great to have a lightener to work with in doing that doesn't expand or change in viscosity whatsoever from the moment you mix it. So that is very important. I do some retouches every 10 days of clients that never want to see a root. So you could kill yourself on your application for a retouch of a platinum, but if you are working with a lightener that's going to expand or change in viscosity in any way, that's where it's going to overlap, and then it's going to fray and it's going to break, and it won't be your fault. It won't be your application. It is the lighteners you're choosing to use. So I highly recommend the Blonde Life Lightener. So I'm going in with my standard V balayage again, and we're going to do the little contouring. And I kind of want to show you guys what this is going to, the result of what this is going to look like. So can I bring out Adriana to show the ending result? So I'm going to show you guys what this is going to look like in the end, so you guys can really envision and see that she was a natural level 4 and how bright this really brightened up her skin because I kept around the clavicle bone, I kept around the jawbone, kept around the cheekbone, and then I worked my way up where I barely leave out any hair around the hairline when I do my foils. And it really, really melts out of the hair perfectly. And you guys can see just so easily of a range of 18 foils, how that can really, really add pop. And you guys can see all underneath. Again, you guys are gonna be staring at everybody's hair now all underneath. This is so crucial and key to place dimension in this area. So I'm gonna keep working my way up behind the ear. And in the front, I would only do highlights. I don't put lowlights ever around the hairline.
Okay, so I built a wall of foil to kind of protect myself. Then I immediately went to the hairline and I carved out what I call color contouring. Look at these girls' eyes. They're stunning. Anytime you want to bring attention to something, in the past, I had always thought you bring lightness to it. That detracts from it. If you ever want to accent somebody, the part of color contouring and the part of using hair color as a makeup is to bring a bit of depth to it. So now, having said that and having done that, I actually went and took a section, a small section, right in here, a carve out right here, a carve out here, and a carve out of her bang, so that that depth will sit right where her amazing eyes are, and we'll just create a really great pop. This is a really great tool, and it really, really specializes the kind of thing that we do in the salon, okay? I am gonna go over into my next step after doing this, and that is to work with the curve of the head. Right, you know, it's kind of at that point where if you lay a comb flat on the head, where there is actually where the comb straight comes out. So that's kind of like your guide. So you go right into that and carve it right into the base of that. And for that, for this section right here, I'm going to build that color, but I'm actually going to use 7 NWB Liquid Demi LumiShine on that. And I don't think I shared my Demi Cream formula, which was level 6 natural gold. Okay, we're building a really great gold base. So I'm doing 6 here, now 7 here. Okay, so I actually have this piece left out. I cut it in half. I carved it in half. I'm working with the shape of her head. Pinned that away. Now what I did with that first section right here is I carved out diamond shapes. What I'm going to do here, and there's about 1, 2, 3, is it 4? 4 pieces that are here. I'm going to go and I'm going to use permanent hair color. What am I doing? 7 NWB LumiShine permanent hair color with 20. What's that going to do? That's going to create these ribbons of color that are going to reflect off of the brunette. I'm not going crazy with bleach, although I could. You know, I'm not going to use a high lift, but I'm creating facets of color going through this. We're going to have her out on the stage, the LumiShine stage later this afternoon, and we're going to put some accent pieces into that on top of it. So if you really want to see how this kind of works, we're going to do that. So what I'm doing is 7 NWB here, then I'm going to take the remaining diamond shapes in there, and I'm going to go back with my liquid 7 NWB. Okay? On to you.
Oh, me, yeah.
Hey, buddy.
Keep catching me off guard, Mark.
Right?
So here I've got the first 2 sections done, right? So you can actually see a little bit more of the color transition between them. So the first one is obviously a more vibrant pink, whereas the second one it's still in the pink family, but it has a little bit of a purpley hue to it. The reason that you're going to definitely want to make sure that you have that pink there as the base, because if I went on with this purple and then mixed it in with this yellow, yeah, remember what we said? Yep, not so pretty. So the pink being in there and then the orange being in here, it's going to help it to all kind of harmonize really nice. Now what I'm going to do is take a third section. So the third section will be just a little bit wider. So this is about 1.5 inches. This one's about 1 inch. The next one's also going to be about 1.5 inches to 2 inches, and it's going to pivot down to the ear. And that one I'm going to start with that purple, but that time it's going to come into that orange, all right? So those two, they're not going to cancel out. They will work together. We'll be able to melt those through. And then the last one that we're going to do in the back where it stays a little bit darker is going to be that deeper, that much stronger, deeper violet going into a cleared out version of a red. So that's going to help it to also kind of just work itself all the way around. So you do the same thing on one half and then jump over to the other side, do the same thing over there, and the two sides meet in the middle. Really important with the sectioning, if you are going to do this, is you have to make sure that that last section right here in the back is not quite as wide as the other ones when you're pivoting over, because if you take this one too wide and the other one meets up in the middle, you're going to have this giant block in the back that's all the same color. So it's supposed to transition. So make sure that that last one straight in the middle is a little bit more narrow, so that way when the other narrow one meets up, it's actually symmetrical with the other sections all the way around.
All right, so you guys, I'm just finishing up by scattering to, a lot of times I like to use the demi creams as not so much a low light, but also as a tone light is what I like to call it. It puts the opacity in there for the dimension, but it just kind of adds tone. So I'm doing a very light 9NG on her to just add a flicker of more golden throughout there. Also, too, as you guys can see, all the products that we spoke about today and all the lines that we have under within one line, it's really important to choose your products. And my final tip in blonding and choosing your product and doing so is I always say, you know, people really struggle as to when to grab for a high lift and then when to go in for the pre-light and tone. And my advice to you, and it's never failed me, is if you guys can see her base was so light naturally that she pulled so beautifully with our XLN. She was a natural level 8. If you are ever trying to achieve a desired level that's 3 or more levels of the natural hair color, you must pre-light and tone. So I always say if it's 2 and under levels, that's where you want to grab your high lift to get that really clean lift of the high lift. So that's my advice. Thank you.
Good tip, Zoe.
Thanks, Ricardo. I appreciate that.
I've seen plenty of that in Florida. Just right, Sherry, have you seen that where you try to lift more than 2 levels? Or have you seen them come in and then you got to fix it? Right? So that's why I said good tip.
You guys, I had just finished on the right side. Let me show you also. Working on a diagonal line. I left out, it looks like I placed her dimensional red around her hairline. Actually, when you take a look at her, what is not foiled with these deeper pieces, this top little triangle. The last thing we want to do with a blonde is create depth on their hairline or their part, right? Because no matter if we low light with a 9, or even if we low light with a 10 on a 10, they think you just put black hair in there. So just keep it off with their hairline, keep it off with their part, all interior. When you create that depth within, you then are doing that multi-dimensional, 2, 3-dimensional hair color. To me, is absolutely breathtaking. So take a look at, again, the foils are on a slight diagonal. They're low lights. We're gonna balayage this. I'm gonna turn her a little bit if I do have like 1 more minute. Okay. Right, this isn't bad. It's not bad. We're just gonna make it better. We're gonna show, so when it bounces, you see interior depth. And by doing that, you have to create, even if it's a shade deeper and or on another tone. So if her foundation is warm, put something cool within at the same level and you'll still create that dimension. Even if they say, no, I don't want low lights. I think that also is another terminology we shouldn't use. Low lights. Does that sound pretty? Does it? No one's listening to me. Does it sound pretty? Low lights.
Sounds
no,
depressing.
It's dimensional. Because then when you're working with your blondes, and I'm sure Zoe can contest to this, when you work with your blondes and you say low lights, they're scared, right? So when you say, I would love to see some soft dimension within, you've just upsold yourself, your craft, and her hair color.